Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness.
Bobby Masha is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
Episode 9, we made it. We're still going, cranking. All right, guys, I got an exciting guest today. Author of 2 books, Lessons Beyond the Obvious and Breakthrough Results. She's also the co-host of Failed Forward podcast and winner of several awards, including Top 3 Advertising Agencies, 50 Best Women in Business, 40 Under 40, Top 25 Leading Women Entrepreneur. She's also an avid traveler. We just spoke about some of her time that she was volunteering in Central America, but she's also volunteered in Africa. And she has the goal of hitting all 7 continents, where she's already hit 4. She's got 3 more to go. I bring to you the founder of Paradigm Marketing and Design, Rachel Durkan.
Thank you for having me. I like the sound effects.
So I appreciate you coming on today. You know, I was hoping to really hit on a couple of things. You know, we talk a lot about the self-managed business, basically the shit that you've learned and you know not to repeat.
I still repeat it sometimes.
So what you've done to kind of unchain yourself from your business so you can start to look at more of the macro level and less on the micro level. And I know that's a lot of the stuff that you talk about. Also want to talk a little bit about your experience with becoming a thought leader through authoring your book and having the podcast. What's that been like for you and your business and your mindset? And then also, what are the biggest things that keep you up at night, given that the digital marketplace has been changing so rapidly and you're in that space? What is it in that space that kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat, so to speak? Okay. From your perspective, anything that you want to add to that list?
That's a very comprehensive list. We can go in a lot of directions with that. So I think we're good.
So let's start with you and kind of your, where you are to date, how you've got there. Give our audience a little bit about the story of Rachel in a, couple minute synopsis.
So I started my business by accident. I went to school for marketing. I got my MBA and a master's in marketing, and I was intended to work for somebody. I worked in pharma for a little while. I had what I call my quarter life crisis, and I worked for nonprofit for a little while in digital marketing. And when I was in nonprofit, I went back to school for web development because when I came out of school, digital marketing was just starting to become a thing. I remember I was in college when Facebook, if you were in college, you were allowed to be on Facebook, and otherwise you were not, right? And so when I was a freshman, I used Facebook. By the time I was graduating college, Facebook was just getting launched to the world. So they're like, well, you must be an expert in Facebook. But there was no algorithms or no digital marketing. It was all organic. So they were like, well, no, you're in charge of the digital marketing strategy. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So I went back to school for web development because you had to start understanding algorithms. I had to understand, how coding worked in order to figure out how all of this integrated together, right? So I did that to support my endeavors in digital marketing, but I started to like this. I was like, I actually enjoy building websites for people. So I did it at night and on the weekends for fun. And at this point I was working in nonprofit and they knew what I was doing.
How are you finding your clients?
The first client I found on Craigslist.
Okay.
I built my first website, which was almost 100 pages for $500. I had no idea that would be $50,000 today. I had no idea.
That's a comprehensive website.
It was. I wonder if it's still up. I should look for it. But I had no idea what I was doing. And then it was word of mouth. I would network and I would meet people and I would go to help them build their website and I'd meet these small businesses and I'd say, well, who's your target audience? Everyone. Well, what's your value proposition? We're really good at customer service. I'm like, all right, well, you need more help than just building a website. But in order to build a website, you need a proper message. In order to get a proper message, you need to have a strategy. So I was offering marketing services to these people. And then one day I realized that my hobby at night and on the weekends was making more money than my real job. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm so busy. I should really hire someone. I'm like, how ridiculous is that I want to hire someone for my hobby, but I won't quit my real job because there's health insurance there and a steady paycheck. And I was scared. So,
that's so many people fall to that plight of, I'm so anchored to my job and that fear of cutting the cord. And most people never do it.
Yeah.
They'll keep that side gig and they're just proud to have a side hustle on the side.
Yeah. And to your point about scaling, every one of those major milestones was terrifying. Leaving your real job is terrifying. Hiring your first employee. I remember my first employee, whose salary I paid. She's like, I'm going to go get a mortgage. I had to sign, I'm like, you're going to buy it with the salary I pay? Like, it was terrifying. I'm like, oh God, I got to keep this together for her. And it's always scary. But I remember I had a business coach that said, you can't get to second base with your foot still on first. You've got to break the tether. And it gets easier.
I'm a baseball guy and I like that analogy.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
It gets easier. Like now I'm so numb to it. You have to take the risk. If you don't take the risk, it's going to drag you down.
When you decided I'm going to cut off and do my essentially side hustle, right? Full time. What did that look like for you?
I had just gotten married. I had no kids. We were still living in an apartment. It wasn't a huge risk to reward for me because, or there wasn't a lot of risk because I bartended all through college and I knew I could make money bartending. And I thought, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'm just going to go pick up some shifts on the weekend and I'll be able to pay my rent.
Yeah, right.
So it was easier then. It gets harder as you bring on responsibilities and employees and overhead. And so I think that first jump, as scary as it was easier than some people have to do when they've got children to take care of or, a mortgage or they're like further along in their career.
Now that baseline that you were at when you hired your employee and then you decided to finally cut cord of your job and open the business, was that enough to continue the lifestyle that you had? Or did you feel like you were stuck against a rock and a hard place and you needed to push that ball forward as fast as possible?
It supported my lifestyle. But like I said, I had a 1-bedroom apartment with my husband. So like the lifestyle wasn't, egregious by any means. And at the time I did pick up shifts at a bar. Now that I think about it, just for extra cash. But over time, it built up. And I think having a really clear P&L vision, having a real clear understanding of what resources you need, especially in a service business, it's really hard. I mean, me and my COO met this morning and we spent a lot of time thinking about what's the maximum that this team can handle and when do we need to bring on new resources and what how much do we need to invest to do that? So having that plan in place, I think, is really important.
What were one of the biggest adjustments that you had to make early on to get to that spot where you felt like you had that plan? When I started my business, it was a similar situation, except I didn't still have my job and a side hustle. I got into this business and I started to build my book. And then it was, I have to hire the first person. And then it was, all right, what do we do now? And I got to the point where I needed to bring in a partner because it was too big for one person and an assistant. And it kind of snowballed from there. But one of the things that really propelled us forward was my decision to focus on the target market. You kind of
put yourself in the right spot.
Who's your target? Oh, everybody. Who could be your client? Oh, everybody. I mean, the case is for most businesses, everybody can. But the minute you start to define what that target market looked like, you should have better results. So for me, that was the defining moment
that you took off. A lot of it comes down to head trash and getting out of the owner's own way. And I'll give you some examples of that. So I've had lots of coaches over the years. I have lots of masterminds. So you're going to hear me reference different people's advice. But think of that you have a Venn diagram and there's 3 circles and you have what the business needs in one circle. You have what you like doing in another circle and you have what you're good at in the bottom circle. If it's not in that middle of the Venn diagram, you gotta delegate it. Whether it's to a contractor, whether it's to an employee, whether it's to a partner. When you start letting go and letting other people do what they're good at, like I always say, like I'm a jack of all trades. I'm sort of good at a lot of things, but I'm not very good at one thing. And so when I started hiring people that are very good at one thing, that's why they're not entrepreneurs. That's why they do this one thing that they're good at, right? That's when the business started taking off. So letting go, which is like a huge head trash for a lot of like small businesses, a lot of them don't get to $1 million because they can't let go. And
it's that fear of loss of control.
Exactly. And frankly, now the other day, somebody asked me something. I was like, I have no idea. And I loved that answer. I mean, they know that they'll bring it to me if it's a challenge, but it's nice to know that somebody else is worrying about it and I don't have to. That works, in my opinion, up to like 5 employees because you can let go of the littler things, right? You can delegate out the tactical items. When you have to start bringing in the other strategic thinkers, the other critical thinkers, and I always call them the people who, when I started hiring people who were smarter than me in my business, the business started taking off. I hired people that were better at me than in accounting, better at me than operations and SOPs, better than me. I'm always looking for somebody who's smarter than me at something and letting them do that job. And when you start to let go, that's when I took off.
I don't know if this is a male-female thing, but it seems like women are a lot better at this than most guys because most guys, the ego gets in the way. It's that ego of not being, I built this, I did this, and it's the puff the chest, and it's really hard for most business owners, I would say in general, to, shed those little things and then start to shed the bigger things. I mean, that's what everybody always says, right? You never want to be the smartest person in the room, because if you are, you're in the wrong room.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I actually think women have a hard time letting go, but for different reasons. And so we're totally stereotyping here. But I mean, it's even like in my household, like, well, I can do it better. I can dress my daughter better. I can, get the.
Well, that's why I asked, because different perspectives, right? I look at it and I just think women are
reasons.
better at it than men. And you look at it and you're like, nope, we still have the same problems.
Just for different reasons. I know I think that it's really hard to do, because also my business was my first child. Like it means a lot to me, and it grew in different ways, and it supported lots of people. And it's the reason I have the lifestyle, and my team has lifestyle, lives that they have. And it's hard to give that away.
Well, it's funny that you reference it was your first baby, your first child, because businesses are kind of like kids. At first, they need a lot of attention. They need a lot of support. They need a lot of your time and your energy, your effort. You almost have to give everything to it. And then as it starts to get older and more mature, you need to be able to peel back, because they need to create their own sense of independence.
I always tell my team, like, if I were to get, it's like a very morbid example, but if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, this company has to keep running, and that's why there needs to be a couple signatures on the bank account. That's why we have a rule of 3 in our company. 3 people need to know how to do a job and be involved in an account in some way, so that if somebody wants to be out sick, has to be out sick, wants to go on vacation, needs to leave the company, there's a backup plan. And that's myself included. So
I always say abducted by aliens, because I always hate to throw people under the bus.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that somebody knows how to do my job. But that means a couple other people know how to do pieces of my job. And that's really important.
Enough that if you were to take a week off and go to Costa Rica, that the wheels are going to stay on and there's nothing going to be dramatically wrong when you get back.
Well, I told my team, I was like one of the best vacations. Nobody called. I only get phone calls when there's a crisis. Like, that's why I've elevated to that position. Like, I'm like, is somebody dying? Then call me. And I'm being dramatic, but I didn't get any phone calls. I didn't get any issues. And I said to them, I'm like, thank you so much for not needing me.
Isn't that a great feeling?
It's great. And so I can walk away from the business for a while. I don't know that it will grow at the same pace without me, because I have like a lot of the I have time for strategy and innovation, because I'm not worried about the nuances, but it will definitely run and grow steadily without me.
How were you able to create that time? Was there something that you can look back to and say strategically, this is the move that I made that was able to free up most of my time? Was there a strategic hire? Was there a strategic moment? What was that?
I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to take a step back, because it happens at different stages. So I met a really smart man who took his company from inception to selling it publicly. And him and I were chatting, and he said, getting to $1 million is hard. But what got you to $1 million is not going to get you to $3 million. What gets you to 3 is not going to get you to 10. What's going to get you to 10 is not going to get you to 25. So you have to change every time. And so every time you get over those hurdles, there was things that changed. So to me, to get over $1 million, it's all about sales, right? How do I create a sales infrastructure? Then when you go from and I'm talking about the service industry, right, the 1 to 3, it's about an operational infrastructure. How are SOPs happening? Is everybody getting the same type of service? Is everybody following with service industries? Everyone's following the same culture. Like, you're not just putting cogs in a wheel. You actually are dealing with human beings and personalities, and you need to streamline that. And then when you get over 3, I feel like it becomes a leadership. Are there other people thinking strategically, leading teams that can scale and make decisions independently? And so to answer your question, I think that at every phase, there was a critical factor, whether it was a key hire or a standard operating procedure or focusing on culture in the company. But every stage requires that critical moment, I think, depending on what you need.
I like that breakdown in terms of the revenues, because we've gone through some similar cycles from the sense of, I grew the business from 0 to where it is today. I speak to different business owners every week about the same situation. And, at the end of the day, we all talk about how we can't be all things and everything to our business. We always have to kind of branch out, but to be able to define that structurally, to say, sales to $1 million, operationally to $3 million, and then beyond, leadership. That's a really good way to kind of put it.
And what's interesting is, I hate to say this now and I've learned my lessons, if anybody's really angry with me for saying it, but like in college, like, you always focus on marketing and sales and advertising and operations and accounting. And like, those are the big areas of the business. But I realized like HR becomes so important, and like raising up other managers and other leaders becomes so important, further you go. And those other things matter a little less because they become tactical.
your business is always going to have a culture. And it's
Mhm.
just a matter of, are you leading the culture or are the employees leading the culture?
Or is the culture leading you?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then you become almost like you become almost like a prisoner to your own business because you didn't lead the culture if you end up
Mhm.
finding yourself being in the back seat of that.
Yeah, and making sure the right people are on the bus. I learned this lesson too. Last year I had two big things going on. Created a lot of revenue for the business, but that took all of my attention, all of my time, all of my stress. I would go on vacations and I had to deal with it. Like it was dragging me down. And my CEO kept saying to me, she saw it and she's like, this is worth it. Like, is this worth the money? When you're in it, it felt like I was so worried about trying to fix the problem that I didn't realize that I could have just cut it loose. Right. And so what I learned last year, like I have my big lesson from last year is if something's a huge problem, even if it's making you money, is it really worth it? And
Mhm.
so I've started just like cutting. If it's not part of the culture, if it's not supporting us, like it's got to go. Like I'd rather have the perfect smaller company that can grow, and like cutting out the cancer pieces than a larger company that is creating headaches or distracting me. Because if I'm getting, and one of our higher level managers just learned this lesson because she had a poor employee under her and she was covering for this person because, I don't think she was doing it on purpose, but she was compensating for them. And that means she wasn't training or developing her other 17 members. So when you're looking over in one spot and putting out one fire, it can be dragging down the rest of the company.
So how many people in total do you have in under the roof now?
We have 25.
25 people.
Mhm.
I would say, what was the biggest mistake that you've made? If you were to look back, even whether it's early inception or yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made that you've gone, because you've said we still repeat them,
Mm-hmm.
but what are the ones that you've gone, oh man, I cannot repeat that. And it's
Mhm.
also changed the course in which you operate your business.
Getting distracted from the point, from like the end goal. Like and that goes back to having the wrong people on the bus, trying to make things work for too long. That's what I'm going to say. It's holding on to something for too long. They always say it's hire slow, fire fast.
Yep.
That's one example. But also like maybe there's a new business unit you're bringing in. Doesn't work out. Let it go. You don't have to spend time letting it. I was just listening to CNBC this morning and they're talking about Google and like search is their cash cow. But they're trying to bring in AI. Like, I'm not saying, I'm sure Google will do a good job of it, but should you be doing that if it's dragging around the rest of the business? So they should probably just acquire a bunch of AI companies. But, there's different ways of doing things and getting distracted on what's new and shiny. Because here's the thing about entrepreneurs. When my business was going really well, instead of being like, you know what, I'm going to take the day off. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to relax. I'm going to be happy. I'm like, you know what I should do? Something else.
Yes.
And so the problem with that is when things are going really well, instead of enjoying and building on the growth in a strategic and slow and steady way, like we probably should, us as entrepreneurs are like, oh, let's go to the next shiny object to bring in the next cool thing and the next new idea. And that's not always right. Sometimes it is, but it's not always right. So I'm trying to avoid shiny objects, and slow and steady is really the right way to go if you want to grow, depending on what your goals are.
It's funny because when I first got into this business, there was a sales training element to my entry into advising.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of those sales training element, because when I started my career, I worked for a company where financial advisory was, you do the investments, you do the planning, you do the insurance, you do the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, like you try to do everything. And to your point, you then become very well versed in a lot of different things, but where are you really an expert?
Mm-hmm.
And I was a finance background. My expert's always been in the capital markets, like stocks and bonds and trading has always been in my blood, so to speak. And I got to the point where I'm going, I'm trying to get these sticky points for customers where I'm 7 items. I think they have 7 things that you want to be in their life. And I'm driving myself crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I decided to pull away from that and just become a pure advisory firm where there was no commissions, no saleable products, and we just focused on doing a really good job while still using that, experience of saying like I can issue flag for a lot of things to bring in other people, but that doesn't have to be me.
Yeah.
That's when things kind of change for me also. It's a lot of the things that you reference are things that not only I prescribe to or have prescribed to, but I also hear a lot of other people kind of speaking similar languages at certain times. Is there anything that you prescribe to? I know you've had a couple of coaches throughout your career, but is there any format that you follow? Or are there any people that you read or do some extra coaching in their space or further education?
I've always had either a business coach or a mastermind group that I've been involved with. And I'm a big believer that you do outgrow them, right? So if you're doing it right, you're outgrowing them, right? A coach can help you with something for 18 months to 2 years, maybe even a year. And then hopefully you've learned what you can from that person and you move on to, because we're all experts in different things, right? So throughout my career, I've had different coaches or mastermind groups. That's number one. Like, bring in other people who are smarter than you at something. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. I'm also a big fan of scaling up, the Rockefeller habits.
Mm-hmm.
So that has helped us a lot when it comes to building infrastructure and getting everybody on the same page.
So do you guys follow the rocks methodology? Do you create your rocks? Do you hold everybody accountable? Do you do the meetings where you're making sure that the rocks go first, then the gravel, then the sand, then the water? Does that kind of...
It's similar. We do right now. Our big focus. We have a critical number, so the whole company knows what we're going towards every quarter or every year, and we're all we make it fun too, right? So right now our critical number is billable hours. Like, are we hitting the billable hours we need? And we have a red, yellow, and green goal, and we get different rewards. Obviously, everyone's got their individual bonuses based on their personal goals, but it all ties together for the company. So when is this coming out? Because the team doesn't know the goals yet. I mean, the prizes yet. I don't want to tell you guys. But
we're gonna the prize early July.
Oh, okay. So this year, if we hit the green goal, they're going to get a couple of days off. Plus, everybody gets a $125 gift card. That's what they said they wanted in the awards. If we hit the goal early, I was going to give them the whole week of the 4th of July off. We'll see what happens. If we hit the yellow goal, it's different. So we get different goals, and we're all working towards the same thing. We've got cheerleaders. We've got like a committee of cheerleaders that actually make it really fun every week and say where the goal is, and it actually makes it funnier because she's a writer and not a graphic designer. So she draws it by hand and it looks ridiculous and makes it perfect because we're a digital agency. So everybody rowing the boat in the same direction as you get bigger is so critical.
I know everybody's motivated by something different, right? Not everybody's motivated by money. Not everybody's motivated by time off. You can follow the 5 love languages, or you can use other psychological methods. How do you engage with your employees to figure out what it is that's going to motivate them to get you over the hump for that big number?
There's a balance here, right? Because we need standard operating procedures as we scale, right? When we get to 50 employees, I'm not going to be able to ask every single one of them, right? And when you get to 100, you can't do that. So we have a standard based on the team you're on. Bonus strategy. So that covers that's the 3 R's, right? Reward, recognition, responsibility that motivate people. So we have the bonus strategy, the bonus structure that covers that. We also have the team element with the critical number where we're all rowing in the same direction. And there's a lot of motivation there with you don't want to be the one who didn't do what the team, to help the team out. And we're blessed to have a very collaborative and supportive team.
Fear of being left out.
Exactly. There's a lot of FOMO happening. And then also celebration together when we win, right? I also make sure that our managers are spending a lot of time with each of their team members, understanding, what do you want? Where do you want to grow to? Do you want to move over to design? Maybe you should mentor with Kristen. Is your development XYZ? You want to get promoted? Okay, here's the 5 things you need to work on. So it's really important that we have a global strategy, but we also have a very personalized strategy. And I should be able to go to every manager and say, what's so-and-so's motivation? And they should know it. They should know what their development plan is, what they want to accomplish, where they want to go.
Well, we'll go right back to the HR comment of you saying HR is one of the most important things, because when you start to identify what people want out of their career instead of trying to drive them to where you think they need to be, right? Where are you really excelling? What are the things that you're not really excelling at? Probably because you just don't like to do it, not because you're not smart enough. How do we take you away from that and make you do more of this stuff? And then what's your goal? Am I pushing you to be something that you don't want to be, or are you shooting for the moon?
I always say that because we are small enough that we can say, what are you good at and what do you like doing? Because I have a theory on weakness that there's 3 things you can do with a weakness. You can ignore it. I'm a terrible speller. I've given up. There's Grammarly out there. There's Microsoft. I don't care. I have my editors read things before it goes out to for print because I just know I'm a bad speller. And I honestly don't care anymore. When I have people on my team, they know they have to read between the lines because Rachel's not going to spell something right. You can hire around it. You can hire a team around it. So, I have a salesperson who really enjoys going out and talking to people all day. She brings the leads in. I'm like an extroverted introvert. I get drained by that. So it's perfect. She goes out. We call it velociflanking because we're velociraptors, and that's how we sell together. And then there's some things you have to address. Maybe you're a poor manager and you've got to get better at that if you want to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So it's about identifying your weaknesses and figuring out how you're going to handle them and being aware of it, I think is really important. Having your whole team understand that too is really important.
We moved to maybe the second item that I had said I wanted to talk about, which is the authoring that you've done. You're doing a podcast now. Talk to me about what led you to want to write that first book, and how has that changed, or has it even changed the trajectory of how you do business, how your career is, or how you're seen as a thought leader? Talk to me a little bit about your experience there.
Okay, so I'm going to change the question a little bit,
Okay.
or I'm going to answer it differently. So yeah, I've written books, I've written blogs, I've done podcasts, I've done a lot of PR and speaking engagements, and that's all been great. But the number one thing that allowed us to grow and raise awareness with the highest ROI, I shouldn't say affordable, with the highest return on investment, was collaboration efforts. And what I mean by that is when COVID hit, our company really took off, like in a positive way. We had like one bad month where I ate a lot of peanut M&Ms and drank a lot of white wine.
It was that acclamation moment. All right, we're in a new environment. How do we adjust?
I need to. This is my life now. And then it really took off for a number of reasons. But I think one of the main reasons it took off is one of the main ways we brought business in was networking, and relationship building. And we couldn't do that anymore. So I went out to some different organizations and partnerships, and I created partnership opportunities that would raise awareness for everybody and in an affordable way. So I joined forces with the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. I also brought in another partner, and I said, listen, my goal is to bring in, to be shiny during COVID, and to bring in names into our database that I can follow up on and network in. BIA's goal was that they had not a lot of value add to bring their members in a virtual environment at the moment.
And what does BIA stand for?
I'm sorry, New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Okay.
They had like 7,000 members.
Yep.
My other partner who we brought in, C3 Workplace, had a similar motivation as myself. And so how do we stay shiny in this environment? How do we become first to market? And so we joined up with them, and we created, first we created Table for Four. Actually, we did not do that with C3. We just did BIA and Paradigm. And it was virtual networking. We did it every week for 2 years, where we met at lunchtime on Mondays, and we broke everybody out in Zoom. Like we had like a couple hundred people the first several months, and then we broke them out into 4 people, and they could network. And so BIA loved that. They were marketing it. I was getting a ton of new leads with very little effort, providing value. That did really well for 2 years, and then it started to fizzle out naturally with the world opening back up. But then the other thing we created was something called the Business Growth Roundtable. The first Tuesday of every month, we have a different speaker on. We've had Dave Mattson, who's the CEO of Sandler Training. We've had Bob Berg from The Go-Giver. We've had some other best-selling authors and great speakers. And then I myself get to speak often, and some other partners speak. And what's cool about that is it brings in, between 100 and 300 people every month, same partnership strategy, cross-marketing. But we've also been able to bring in sponsors who want to be part of this. And so now I'm using sponsor dollars to market this event with my name on it, and of course our partner's name on it, make it a bigger deal. And our awareness is much higher. So we get thought leadership out of it. We get greater brand exposure. We get cross-marketing efforts. And there's multiple winners in this. And so to answer your question differently, like writing the book was great, but figuring out true collaborative opportunities, our list has grown, our awareness has grown. That is what propelled us forward.
COVID was an interesting time, right? You had a lot of people who really succeeded and did well through COVID, and then you had the people who didn't really know how to adjust. And COVID is one of those extreme moments. But I think that around us constantly, we have changing environments, environments where we need to reassess what our position is, how we're approaching the market, how we're approaching our business, even how we're approaching our employees. When you just mentioned COVID being one of those times you made a huge adjustment, and then coming back, that next adjustment was your business roundtables, right? What do you see as maybe the next environment change, especially with the digital marketing arena shifting on us all the time? What do you look for in the next environment change for your business, and how do you envision approaching it, or how have you been approaching it?
COVID was a very obvious change, right? The whole world changed. It was like, oh, that's happening, right? Other changes are more subtle. So it's about, I actually did a presentation on this. It's about paying very close attention to what's happening in the marketplace and what your audience wants and needs are. So we do something called an audience matrix with our clients when we're doing a marketing plan or a messaging strategy, which is how we're articulating our message to our audience in a meaningful way, which you should reassess every couple of years, if not sooner. And you should look at this audience matrix every 6 months because it looks at the psychological needs or the psychographics of your audience. What are their wants? What are their needs? What are they worried about? We saw I guess you could argue it was a business recession last year, not a true recession. We're seeing all these different changes in different industries, and it's happening very quickly. And so you have to pay attention to what the audience needs are at any moment. When something major like COVID comes out, I actually found COVID to be easier because it was a very obvious adjustment. You could get into your little hidey hole and eat peanut M&Ms and drink wine, for months and months, or you could adjust quickly. And that was easier. Here, I recommend to my clients doing that audience matrix at least every 6 months. And in this environment, maybe every 3 to see what the audience changes are in your marketplace so you can adjust slightly.
Well, I feel like the trends are constantly changing. I mean, even if I just look at my own digital marketing, and that's kind of why I was stuttering around that question is, we look at Facebook is then the leader. Now it's Instagram, then it's TikTok, and then it's people aren't going on social media as much, and they're looking at more YouTube shorts. And then, to your point, it's people were at one point were a lot of networking, and then networking kind of fell out of favor, and then it was seminars, and nobody goes to seminars anymore. It's you're constantly trying to find out where you're.
So I would argue that you're looking in the wrong place. So on average, it takes 9 to 13 touches to create engagement and build trust with your audience. A touch can be a networking event, a Facebook post, an email, whatever, right? It's any interaction with your organization. Think about how many touches you have all day long, right? There's so much interaction. We have an attention span shorter than a goldfish now. So marketing, everyone thinks marketing is Facebook marketing or YouTube ads or what, it's the outlet. That is the least important part of marketing. You actually have to be in all of those places, and you want to use behavioral targeting and retargeting and to create those touch points. But the most important part of marketing is understanding your audience and the message and how it's going to resonate with them, because you have 7 seconds. So if I can pay millions of dollars and do an ad in every one of those areas, but if the ad's not resonating, it doesn't matter. So it's really about driving that touch process and using behavior marketing, using lead scoring, using AI to leverage consumer behavior and figure out where they're going to be next. It's all of those outlets have to be used. It's how you're going to make sure that they engage with each other together is what marketing is now.
Now, where do you feel that most people are going wrong in their messaging? When you see people and you're taking them on as a client, is there a common
Most people do
theme?
messaging wrong. Most people don't even think about messaging. Most of them assume that they know what their audience wants, and you should never assume you know what your audience wants. We had a client that financial services, they ultimately they wanted $1 billion in AUM. I'm sorry, 100 million, not a billion. That would be nice. 100 million in AUM. When they were growing, they came to us and they were like, we were getting a ton of phone calls a day. They were doing a lot of PR. They were on Forbes. They were on CNBC. They were doing Barron's. They had a lot of really good press. They had a huge press team behind them. When they came to us, they're like, we're getting phone calls all day, but it's not the right audience. 20% are good, 80% are bad. Our team is spending a whole lot of time kissing frogs. And we did a messaging analysis. We said, okay, give me your top 10 clients, your favorite people, and send them to us. We want to have a conversation. We call them voice of the customer interviews. And we found out that these people were people that were very educated, but not educated in financial services. They wanted people who would entrust them. Maybe some of them were widows, but they wanted to entrust, or they were retirees who spent their life in corporate, whatever. So when we looked back, we realized that all of their messaging, they were speaking on these outlets that most of their audience would never watch anyway. They were talking about things that were flying way over their audience's head because they were talking about their expertise and how the market nuances were changing, but their audience didn't care about that.
Right.
And so they were saying the wrong thing in the wrong place. We were like, stop doing the PR. You've got enough that's showing your authority. We changed the message. In fact, what we did was, I'm going to get these companies wrong. It was Biogen that bought Celgene, right? A couple of years back. One pharma bought another company. Okay. One pharma bought another pharma company. And we knew this was happening in the area. And so we did a LinkedIn targeted ad campaign to executives or senior levels in this company. And, it was a webinar around should you take your package and retire, or do you need to keep working? And that webinar crushed it. And it was a 50% conversion rate on clients when it brought in 100 people as opposed to the millions they were getting phone calls for. But it changed the way we were talking and who we were talking to. And now suddenly they were getting the right types of people calling them. So it's really about just are you saying the right thing to the right audience? I really believe in the B2B marketplace, which is mostly what we serve. Social media in and of itself is not going to produce direct ROI. It is a great tool. You should use it in your arsenal. It's part of that many touch process. It's going to build your authority, but it's not going to drive a direct return on investment. That's super trackable. Most of my clients, when they come to me for marketing services, come to me and say, I need social media marketing. I'm like, you do, but you need these 800 other things. At the top of my website, underneath marketing, social media is one of the first things you can find. If you talk to me, I'm like, I'm not selling you social media marketing. I'll do that with everything else. But at my website, at that point of the sale, at that point in the decision process, I'm not going to fight the river. Like, they can click on social media marketing, read about how we use it to interact, and then they can call me. And then I will educate them, or they can sign up for our email or whatever. And I will educate them along the buying funnel that social media is not what they need, but don't fight them at that moment, right?
Yeah.
So it's about getting people where they are and nurturing them along the process.
So what do you think is the right place for most businesses to start?
In marketing, like I said, an audience matrix, understanding, and we have a template on our website that you guys can download if you want that outlines how an audience matrix works, but understanding exactly what your audience, what they think they need, what they really need, what keeps them up at night. And even if you're in B2B, it matters too. You want to know what their title is, but on an emotional level, what are they worried about?
So do you want to give that website, and we'll throw it down in the comments as well?
Sure. It's paradigm-md.com, paradigm-md.com.
All right. Well, there you go. Now you can figure it out.
Yeah.
So what do you, if you were to look forward at your business in the next 5 years, what does it look like? How has it changed?
I think automation is critical. And it's going to make us smarter. It's going to make us more efficient. It's going to increase ROI. But I think automation is going to become a major factor. But I always say automation, it's semi-automation, right? We can use AI to help with messaging, but we're still humans. We still have feelings. And marketing is all about feelings. It's all about feelings. And so as much as we can use AI to tell about interactions and clicks and behaviors and how fast somebody's making a decision and when to send the next email, that all is great. But it's not going to necessarily, and it's going to give us insight. It's not necessarily going to help us understand how people are feeling. And that's going to remain really important.
Well, people buy with their emotion, right?
They do.
So.
I spent a lot of money on Instagram the other day for no reason. Now I have to return something.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
That's always
I know. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
I always laugh. I'm like, did you get that on Instagram? If you look over there, I got that little space guy.
Yeah.
Instagram. It's an Instagram purchase. You buy the stupidest stuff, and it's like, oh.
It knows me so well. And then you put like Instagram and Facebook together, and Amazon together, and I'm done for. So
the amount of cardboard that we go through as a society now.
It's really bad.
I mean, it's
luckily
insane.
My kids enjoy it as a toy. So I've had to stop buying toys. They can just play with my Amazon boxes.
Oh, really? Can your kids teach my kids how to enjoy that? Because my kids are just not into cardboard
Construction
boxes.
paper, glue everywhere, and some cardboard
They want everything
boxes.
that's in the boxes, and it's usually a lot more expensive than the box
That's
itself.
funny.
So we're looking forward at 5 years. Automation is going to be one of the biggest things that you see your industry changing and your business changing. If you were to go back 5 years, what would be one of the biggest pieces of advice you would give yourself 5 years ago on what you've learned in the past 5 years?
I guess the advice would be let go sooner and create a culture around innovation. That's actually been really successful for us. It's impossible to keep up, but creating a culture around where every leadership meeting, what's new? What have you guys tried? That's part of our culture now. And it makes us more efficient. It makes us smarter. It makes us bring in new ideas. So it's about creating that culture of whatever you want, collaboration, innovation, whatnot. Don't try to do it alone. Me sitting around behind a desk, like Googling, like what is going to happen in innovation, it doesn't work. And when you're smaller, you do that. But getting everybody else who's in it day to day, thinking about how to use it. We're starting to use AI tools for taking notes now. It's saving the whole team like something like 7 to 8 hours a week per team, with our clients. So but I wasn't going to be able to implement that. They had to implement that. So it's about building that culture around innovation.
What would you say to somebody who's trying to start their own business, whether it be in marketing or something else? If there were 3 pieces of advice that you could give to them, just on your own learnings and your own experience, it seems like you're well read. You kind of stay up to speed with the industry. You've got your role models that you follow, your coaches that you use. What would be 3 major pieces of advice you'd give to that person?
I'd say bring in a mentor earlier. I started the company really young, and I think that if I had different mentors, but I think that if I had, is the word sought out mentors earlier, certain mentors earlier, I think I would have moved faster. You asked me for 3.
Isn't it interesting how, because I think people find mentors in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring in somebody who doesn't have a vested interest other than to improve your current position because you hired them. There's no history. You can't go back, 5 years ago and come up with a really good story. It's just somebody who's really good at bringing out the best in you as a coach. Isn't it amazing how much that can transform the direction in which your business goes?
And strategic partners. I mean, I had a couple where I didn't pay them as mentors. They were, but I found a win-win. I'm all about finding win-wins, right? Same thing with like the business growth roundtable. I found other agencies that were bigger than me and that I knew I couldn't handle certain projects. I would bring them business. I want to do this with you. Okay. I'll take your money. Or I'll take the client's money. So, I was able to learn by watching, by bringing others business too. So finding strategic ways to align yourself with somebody who could be a mentor, even if it's not formal, is really productive.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we do that with even outside of our direct industry. So if we're doing a estate planning case, we work directly with the estate planning attorneys. Doesn't make us as proficient as they are, but it gives us a little bit more in our knowledge base. I know enough to be dangerous.
I know when to bring them in. I know how to provide guidance and ideas to my clients. I know what to look for. And then I bring in the expert when it's time.
And most people hire you to stay away from the bad stuff. And if you're more fluent on what the bad stuff is that could happen,
exactly,
you can more easily direct them in a way where they're going to become more successful.
The other thing I would say, and advice-wise, is surround yourself with a network of people you know, like, and trust. Because I always have a guy. I always have someone to call. And, I also have to be able to answer when they call me. But having someone, even if it's like, I don't know what to do about this employee, or, because especially when you're a business owner, you can't always go internally to these challenges. Or I have an accounting question. Like, I have people on speed dial that I could text right now, that I could ask, hey, what should I do about this legal issue? And they'll give me a quick answer, or they'll say, call me and I'm going to bill you. But I've always got a guy.
You want to have that plausible deniability, so to speak. So this way you're not calling your accountant, you're not calling your attorney. You can kind of just say, hey, if this were an issue, or if this were to happen, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about here?
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's usually,
your network is everything.
Parting words, if you were to leave our audience with something that that is very Rachel Durkan-esque, what would be the one thing you want to leave with them?
One of the things, my husband makes fun of me because I'm like, everyone's like, oh, I want to be happy, or I want to be rich. I'm like, I just want to be content. And he's like, that's a horrible word. And I'm like, but as a business owner, I'm always looking for the next thing. And so I'm trying really hard to focus on the moment. So as I'm saying that, I got the honor of hearing Maya Angelou speak before she passed away. And she had this quote, and she talked about how people don't remember what you said or what you did. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And so I would say, as you're growing your business, as you're, this ties all back to my managers needing to know what their people want to develop. Most people leave because they have a company because they have a bad manager. How can you influence the people right next to you? How can you help them? How can you mentor them? How can you grow them? How can you help them achieve their goals? So remember how you're making people feel is what I would leave you with.
Now, what are you doing to make yourself more cognizant or make that top of mind every day?
I tried, as I've gotten older, to focus on the journey and not the end result. We'll get to, I've hit goals. You hit the goals you set, and then you're like, oh, great, I have more goals, and it gets tiring. So enjoy the journey.
You think that's a maturing process, or do you think that's something that you can drill into somebody at a young age?
I think it's easier for some people than others, depending on your personality. I think it's really hard for entrepreneurs who are always chasing the next thing. And I don't know if I could drill it into a young age, but I can tell you about it. And you can sure try.
All right. So we gave the website that they can reach you and get your diagnosis tool. They could download it.
We have a couple great tools on there for marketing. Yep.
What are other ways that people can find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Durkan, and the company is Paradigm Marketing and Design.
And do you want to plug your podcast?
Sure. We have Fail Forward. How the hell did I get here? We talk about the ugly and dirty and fun journey to success.
Rachel, I appreciate you coming on. I know that this took time out of your day to come over to Montville, New Jersey and sit down in our studio, but hopefully you enjoyed your time. And that's a wrap on episode 9. All right.